Oh, man. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. If it's your first time here, welcome. It's great to see you. My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic, and we are here with a new time, a new Monday show. We just got to recap this Sunday slate earlier than we were, and it felt like we were just waiting too long to give the people what they needed with our first live stream, our first strategy show being on Tuesday morning. So here we are, Monday afternoon, East Coast time, and we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Lepri. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. I know you were sweating it out Sunday night because the Dolphins looked incredible first half and then completely lost the second half. They end up with a win against the Steelers.
Yeah. Noah, maybe the worst player at our defense with that clutch interception. It was truly inspiring to see someone that bad make that clutch of a play. He basically did the thing that Michael Jackson does where he stands on his toes, you know what I'm saying? When he toe tapped that in the end zone. It was beautiful to see. Shout out to Noah. And yeah, it feels great.
Pronounce
This
his
week
last
was,
name right now. Pronounce his last name. Go.
I have no idea how to pronounce it. I think it's like I just call him Iggy. Everyone just calls him Iggy.
Iggy, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I wondered if you could do it.
No, Ego Bine or something like that. I have no idea how to say his last name. They barely even say it on TV.
Play. It was an unbelievable play, and it looked like Kenny Pickett, who was driving down the field, made an incredible throw to Freiermuth earlier in that drive. Looked like he could layer that in over Iggy. He could not. Iggy comes down with a fantastic toe tap grab, seals the win for the Dolphins, but there is so much more to get to. And as you can see on the title as you click in, my goodness, Matt Ryan is going to the bench. Apparently has a sprained shoulder, but that means Sam Ehlinger is in for the Indianapolis Colts. And Frank Reich seems like he's ready to call him the starter for the rest of the season. Can you believe it? I mean, honestly, I thought Matt Ryan was playing poorly, but this looks like a benching more than an injury.
Yeah, Texas is officially back, baby. Sam Ehlinger, starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Ron the GOAT texted me as that happened. He asked me, how do I feel about Michael Pittman Jr. now? Like, is this better for him, worse than him? And to be honest with you, I think it's like kind of just the same thing, unless Ehlinger just for some reason decides not to just force feed the best player on the team the ball. I think they're going to look to run the ball a little bit more, but I don't think Sam Ehlinger could be like a disaster-filled worst version of Matt Ryan, right? Like, he can't be that much worse.
Oh, it could absolutely be worse, Lepri.
He could definitely be worse. I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to be way worse, like a full-on disaster.
I don't know, man. We already saw, like, a great example of this is Denver, who at least with Russell Wilson, they were putting drives together. They were fizzling. They were falling short. They were fumbling at the goal line. Things seemed to be going awry. Add on the weird behavior of Russell Wilson, and you've got a full-blown meltdown. But when you put Brett Rippon in there, he's ripping the ball over 50 times, and the offense can't even sustain drives, can't even get to 10 points. It can be worse. Ehlinger is a prospect who, didn't light the world on fire. That's why you get drafted at the end of the 6th round. But as you said, Texas finest. We'll see what they got. We'll see if Alec Pierce and Paris Campbell, who actually in the waiver wire video that is going to be released on this very Stochastic Fantasy Football channel later on this evening, I was talking about the upside of Paris Campbell moving forward. Now it's a huge question mark with that target share going forward. And honestly, I would be trading Michael Pittman if I could. Absolutely. I'd be selling low, I guess, at this point. How about you?
Honestly, I'm not too worried about Pittman because it seems like these young quarterbacks, they're just going to throw the ball, force feed to the guy. And the guy on the team is Pittman. So, like, I just feel like he can't be way worse, in my opinion. Maybe unless Ehlinger just stinks. And I don't know why they would bench Matt Ryan if Frank Reich doesn't at least have some confidence in Ehlinger. Because, look, Frank Reich's job, his ass is grass if they keep failing.
So
why would you go from Matt Ryan to Ehlinger? Like, that's not going to save you unless you think Ehlinger is at least could be maybe not the guy of the future, but the guy that can win you a couple games, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, here's how I feel. With the quarterback position, it can always be worse. We saw some good performances that we expected going into the weekend, like Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler, Kenneth Walker, as the Stochastic Fantasy Football Twitter account tweeted out today or yesterday that Kenneth Walker looks like he might be a league winner. His evaded tackle rate, his breakaway run rate, his ability to turn a single rush into an explosive play looks like one of the best in the league on a per rush basis right now. But the injury to Brees Hall after he had broken off that 62-yard run, that 62-yard touchdown run, just brutal for the Jets, who also may have lost Corey Davis for some time as well. It's another thing we got to get to. Michael Carter rostered in approximately 2/3 of leagues. I was looking on sleeper.com earlier this morning. If you play in some kind of league out there where Carter is on the waiver wire, my goodness, that's one of the best pickups you'll see in terms of waiver wire ads all year. But most people will need, speculative ads like Ty Johnson. Would you go there if you need running back help? If you lost Brees Hall?
Yeah, I think you could go to Ty Johnson, but I think there's a realistic outcome. Now, obviously, the NFL trade deadline is nothing like the NBA. Like, people always make this up to be, oh my gosh, this guy's going to get traded, that guy's going to get traded. And basically, nothing ever happens. But there is a chance, in my opinion, if Kareem Hunt was to get traded, like they're saying the Browns are looking to trade him, why would he not go to the Jets? Right? Doesn't that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It makes sense from both sides. And the Browns continue to slip here. Kareem Hunt has been looking for a new contract in a situation where it does not make sense. Sure, I guess if the Jets feel like they can really contend this year, I'm not. Look, I thought Brees Hall was sort of propelling them to a new level offensively because it's certainly not Zach
Agreed.
Wilson. I don't think you go out and trade for that talent or that expectation of production like you saw from Hall. I think you just kind of see what you got, you test the talent, and if you happen to sneak into the wild card spot because there's 7 seeds now each league, hey, maybe you do. This is brutal, and it in most deep leagues, Lepri. I'm traversing the waiver wire. It's a great wide receiver week. It is not a good running back week in a week that we lose Brees Hall. What about these wide receiver injuries? They were plentiful, and the big names were part of it. Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down. DK Metcalf goes down. Mike Williams goes down. The list goes on here. And we mentioned Corey Davis, Nico Collins, Russell Gage, Alan Lazard all leave the game as well. This is a mess.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Was I the only one who thought that Metcalf had to go take a dump again? When he was sitting on the thing, he was like smiling. He was like, "Oh, he's gonna be fine," and then it comes out like he's not fine. I mean, he's going to be okay by the end of the season. Like, he's not gonna be out for the year, but I didn't think it looked that serious. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, I also didn't think looked very serious, and then he had a concussion.
Right.
This is just very tough. Like, this feels like one of the worst weeks ever for fantasy football in terms of injuries. Like, it feels like at every second, guys were going down. Like, Zeke went down. I thought Zeke was done, and then Zeke just appears back in the game. Very weird.
Kyle Juszczyk broke his finger.
Yeah, that was gross.
Yeah, he actually is going to get a pin inserted into it and then play with the splint. He expects to miss no time. One might call him tough. One also a surprise rather than necessarily injuries. Well, that's because the injury already happened. J.K. Dobbins placed on IR before week 7. Gus Edwards, a surprise heavy usage, which looks great because here on the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel, we were talking up Gus Edwards all summer long, only for him to emerge just now. I think he was top 12 among all running backs in fantasy scoring this Sunday. Color me surprised. I thought Kenyon Drake would be used more often. I'm excited to see it going forward.
Yeah, Gus Edwards and Mostert are 2 of my top 5 owned running backs in best ball, so that feels really good. But Gus Edwards, like, it was so funny because, like, early on in the stream, I didn't think Gus Edwards was going to play, and I didn't think he was going to have that big of a role on Sunday. So I was talking about, oh, it's Kenyon Drake week. And then for the people that stuck around for like the last 40 minutes, 30 minutes, I was like, okay, don't start Drake, play Edwards. And I know there are people that ask a question and then leave. I feel bad for them because they got hit by the Drake experience and it wasn't very good. And I kind of told everyone to pivot off of Drake.
They got raked by Drake. That's what they.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I hope this guy, Parter Mania, didn't leave because he just asked a question. Tua's got the Detroit Lions in an early 50-point total as we head into week 8. On Sunday afternoon, Daniel Jones and the New York Giants are 3-point underdogs on the road at the Seattle Seahawks. By most metrics, Detroit and Seattle, the worst 2 defenses in the NFL. So these are spicy matchups for Tua or Jones. If you had to go lean one way or the other, where would you go?
It really felt like last week was the ultimate trap for the Giants. That game felt like such a trap game. They're favorites. It seems like, oh, the books are just begging you to take the Giants. The Jaguars are going to win this game. And then Christian Kirk doesn't have a big enough ass to squeak his way into the end zone and score a touchdown. But at the end of the day, Jones played incredible in that game. Both good matchups. I think because Seattle's defense didn't look terrible against the Chargers, I think I'm going to lean with Tua. But the problem is, and this is the biggest issue with Tua, is if the Lions offense doesn't push them into a super high scoring game,
Yeah.
Tua probably won't be like a top 5 quarterback. But I still think the Lions offense is good enough to push that narrative to where I'd start Tua. But it is
I
pretty
think I
close to
lean
me.
Tua just by a hair. Daniel Jones has been one of the
Looks
most
good.
efficient rushers on a per rush basis, regardless of position, not just at the quarterback position, regardless of position. The coaching scheme has been very creative in New York, but it is Tua by a nose. The
Yeah.
ceiling is a little bit higher for Tagovailoa as well. See some familiar faces here. Miso, what's up? Donnie Bravo, how's it going, guys? And Rise
Oh,
Above Anything showing up in the chat just as well. We're hurting too, man. That's why we're here on Monday. We're lamenting. We're talking about next steps. We got waiver wire first looks here, kind of people that are crossing our minds right now as we kind of figure out what to do with our budgets. Lepri, we're going to tease a little bit because there's one position we're going to leave out in this video because we want you to check out something that's already been released. But Rise Above Anything, we are going to try to rise above this tough injury because Brees Hall, man, did he look good, especially on that touchdown run. That final image we're going to see until that 2023 season. Tough sledding. Now, there are a couple players that at the wide receiver position I do think are worth talking about as interesting ads. You know, I'm looking at players like Paris Campbell. I thought that, especially if Ellinger can be like you're saying, he'd be a really interesting ad. Lazard going down, Sammy Watkins, Marquise Goodwin in Seattle if DK Metcalf is going to miss time. Anybody really standing out above the pack for you at the waiver wire wide receiver position?
yeah. McCole Hardman has to be the most interesting player. I know you didn't bring him
Mm.
up, but like every week, it feels like you never know what. Like Juju has been consistent. I'll give it to Juju. 2 games in a row of over 100 yards, I believe. So congrats to him. He finally figured it all out. But man, like McCole Hardman, MVS, all these guys are just so interesting, but they seem so difficult to be fantasy football like redraft options because you never know what's going to happen. And they're also on bye this week, which makes them even harder to add, in my opinion. The guy that I like the most is Marquise Goodwin. He looks really good. He's been in the league for who knows how long. I mean, I didn't even like until I saw that picture of Gino grabbing him, if you remember from week 1 up against the Broncos. I forgot he was even in the NFL. He always does like a backflip at the end of the game, which is awesome when they win. But I think Goodwin's in a pretty good spot to like while Metcalf's gone, be in a really good spot, especially since Lockett pretty clearly still banged up, even though Gino was kind of pushed to force feed him the ball with Metcalf out.
Season high 54% snap share, tied for a season high 5 targets, 4 catches, 2 touchdowns, obviously, has the Giants, Arizona, and Tampa Bay upcoming. A speedy wide receiver on a team who suddenly can actually utilize that speed with Geno Smith playing well. I have Goodwin, number 1, in the video upcoming, this waiver wire video upcoming, and Paris Campbell, number 2. Zay Jones remains heavily involved, even though Christian Kirk is the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. A
Yeah.
98% and 99% snap share in the last 2 weeks. 4 games already with 8+ targets. I know he's got Denver next, but after that, the schedule lightens up. Las Vegas, Kansas City, a bye, Baltimore, and Detroit. A ton of shootout potential there for Zay Jones, and then Mecole Hardman. And I want to say one more player with Mike Williams possibly on the shelf as well for the Chargers. Look to DeAndre Carter, rostered in just 10% of leagues. Season high 7 targets in week 7, 94% snap share season high. He had never played more than a 74% snap share. So Lepri, if you don't need a starter for week 8, and you can stash a wide receiver, I think DeAndre Carter is in for more usage going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think whoever makes the NFL schedule should be executed in front of the town, Ned Stark style, for putting the Broncos again on prime time. Now imagine the kind of a person who's willing to wake up at 9:30 in the morning to watch the Jaguars versus the Broncos. That won't be me. Won't be
Now,
catching me
are we
doing that. Actually, I will
considering
watch the game,
9:30
but
a.m. Eastern time, 6:30 a.m. Western
West Coast time.
Pacific time, excuse me?
Yeah.
That's not prime time. That is unprime time. In fact,
Yeah.
I'd say bury Denver at 9:30 a.m. so I don't have to worry about it on my red zone channel. I don't
Yeah, well, you
actually
never
think
have to
this is
see
a
it on
bad
Red Zone.
spot. It's just the showdown slate, bros, are just in shambles. But I get it. I get what you're saying. It's still a single game slate in the NFL.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Zay Jones is like in my waiver videos, I've been talking about him for like literal weeks, and his ownership percentage doesn't move. Goes up like 2% every week. No one's adding him. He's been incredibly consistent. I don't like the matchup this week, like you said, but feels like Zay Jones is the clear number two there. Even though we have seen the other Jones on the team, kind of sprinkle in. I really liked Marvin Jones in the offseason, but that just appeared to be wrong to be honest.
And that's what happens. These 32, 33-year-old wide receivers at a certain time, they just can't quite get the step they need, can't quite get back from injury fast enough. Not to say Marvin Jones won't have a spike week here or there, but I'd rather bet on Zay Jones if I don't have
Agreed.
Christian Kirk in that passing game. Also, in the rushing game, Travis Etienne finally finds the end zone, has a huge performance. We told you it was coming. Told you it was coming. At the running back position, I don't see a whole lot here, Lepri. Does anybody stick out at the running back position as a player you can add? There's no obvious starters who aren't owned in say less than 40% of leagues.
Yeah, no, the waiver wire ads this week at running back, like unless there's a serious injury where the other guy is just available, it's very hard to kind of find a waiver wire running back that you like. I guess the biggest one is Gus Edwards because not everyone picked him up, but that was also like obvious, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone with a brain knows to add Gus Edwards, but outside of him, like do you really want to be running to the waiver wire to pick up fucking Tyler Algier or Isaiah Pacheco even? Like, what was that? Come on, Isaiah Pacheco. We just got trolled big time and CH goes in. I was glad CH outscored him, honestly. I can't stand the CH haters. So shout out to CH. And then I guess technically Chuba Hubbard or Deonta Foreman, if they're somehow still available, I
Right.
would pick either of them up. And again, some people would be like, Nick, you're an idiot. They're taken in every league. You would be surprised.
So I
You
just
would
looked
be
at the
surprised.
numbers this morning, about 3 hours ago. Chuba Hubbard rostered at that point. This is on sleeper.com. 47% of leagues. That means more
Yep.
leagues than not. He is on the waiver wire. Latavius Murray, another player, 43% in on rosters. That means nearly 60%, 57% of leagues he is on the waiver wire. Rashad White, 57% of leagues he's on the waiver wire. Gus Edwards, 62% of leagues he's still on the waiver wire. Donta Foreman, 49% of leagues he's still on the waiver wire. These are players that people roll their eyes and we always get comments about. And yet, at least there's a coin flip chance that if you just go up to a random fantasy football player, those players are on that person's waiver wire. So I get it. Every league is different. You know your league better than anyone else. And Richie Smalls, you mentioned it. That is the one player I'm looking at where okay, we can talk there. I also mentioned another player who really is fourth string on his team, but due to a series of injuries and the fact that their team looks capable of scoring 30 plus points as a team, I think you could go there as, again, a speculative end of your bench kind of ad. Anybody else you want to mention here? Because we got to talk tight ends. There were some injuries, and people are going to be looking for some 1 week plays because Kelsey and Everett are on bye.
Yeah, so I think if you are in a super deep league, I would consider adding Miles Gaskin because I think I think they're going to take Edmonds and fire him directly into the sun. I am
Oh,
so
okay.
sick of Chase Edmonds. So sick of Chase Edmonds. I think Miles Gaskin, could you see this happening? Like if Edmonds has another bad game, like the guy on fourth down, on third and fourth down, we hand him the ball. There's a literally Moses parted the offensive line. Just run to the left, pal. It's wide open, and he runs straight into the offensive line's ass like he's Mark Sanchez. This guy's an idiot, and I
We
liked
need
him.
we need a
I'm done with him.
name. We need a name for the Dolphins fan that comes rip roaring out of you. Right? We've talked
Eminem.
about this before. Like there's just something like your soul starts to like come out of you as you get out, like I've just
Just
thought of
annoying.
one. I just thought of one, but I can't say it because people will misconstrue it. Like I don't know. It's very funny to watch you just go off. I agree to an extent. I still think Chase Edmonds is a league average running back, whereas Mostert is a little above league average. Gaskin in his time looked average as well. Still just
Yeah,
25 years old.
and then real quick, I also think James Cook is interesting because it seems like when the games actually matter for the Bills, then you don't see the other running backs there except for Singletary. Like They're not using Zach like when games on the line against the Chiefs. We're not using Zach fucking Moss.
Okay, but
So
here's one thing
James
I
Cook
will
is
say.
interesting.
Cook is interesting. They will definitely go to him. Say Singletary were to get injured, but I think you would see Zach Moss immediately reactivated, and it would be a two-headed monster in
Of
the
course.
backfield like it has been. It's about who gets those passing attempts. One thing I think is possible is that Zach Moss might be considered by the coaching staff a one-to-one role replacement for Singletary. And so there's no reason to make him active because they have a role for James Cook. They have a role for the
That's true.
fullbacks in there. The name is evading me right now, but
Gilliam. Gillum.
yeah, that's it. So ultimately, this is about a lack of available spots on the active roster more than disliking Zach Moss. I think he fits. He's a good swing player for either Cook or Singletary. Should they go down, I don't think that's a bad play. I just don't think Cook would have the backfield to himself. All right, last few minutes here. We got to talk about the tight end position. David Njoku considered week to week. Daniel Bellinger, a disgusting sounding injury. He has a fractured eye socket, possibly needs surgery, which is a bummer since he was actually starting to come on. For the Giants, Wan'Dale Robinson looks good there. I guess they're going to need something out of Darius Slayton because Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney continue to be unavailable and do nothing. So people are going to be hurting. People are needy at the tight end position. Anybody catching your eye heading into week 8?
Yeah, it felt like a John Jones fight with how many eye pokes were happening. That was a tough scene. But for me, look, do you think Zappy's going to keep playing, or do you think they're going to go to Mac Jones tonight? Because if they continue to go with Zappy, I think Hunter Henry, he might be owned in more leagues than I think, but he's available in some waiver wires I've seen. I think Hunter Henry's pretty clearly the number one tight end. And then outside of him, you got guys like Evan Ingram or Jawan Johnson, Greg Dulcich. The tight end position is not very deep on the waiver wire. I think Gesicki is also addable, but to be
Okay.
honest,
What about
like,
Juwan Johnson?
yeah, I think
I
I
noticed
mentioned him. I like Jawan Johnson.
some decent usage. He's rostered in just 5% of leagues right now, so he's most likely available. 5 targets last week in a loss to the Arizona Cardinals, 32 yards, but 2 scores. You're just hoping for touchdowns anyway when you're starting these low end tight end 1, tight end 2 players. He's just competing for goal line opportunities with players like Kamara and Taysom Hill. Excellent goal line options, but a 74% snap share in week 7 caught my eye, and a top 5 route participation rate. Greg Dulcich, first 2 games in the NFL, averaging 6 targets. Denver's offense is bad, but they get Jacksonville and then a bye, Tennessee, Las Vegas, and Carolina. I think end of the bench, Greg Dulcich sounds okay-ish. No?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think my favorite thing about Jawan Johnson is his wife. Have you ever seen his wife on TikTok? It's so funny. It's like,
Sorry, I was not
see,
ready for that. No, I don't.
no, no, she posts like videos. It's like, my husband's out there playing football. I have no idea what's happening, but I always cheer for him. Like, it's like that. They've been dating for a while, and she still has no idea what football. That just, it makes me laugh. It's like very funny. It's like, and I think it's like a joke. Like, I think she actually does understand what's
Yeah,
happening.
that makes sense.
It's just very funny because like people in the comments are like, "You're an idiot," all these things. It's like, calm down. It's just very funny. But if we were looking for another kind of deep cut at tight end, I think you could talk yourself into Foster Moreau if Waller misses again. But I feel like I always talk
Yeah.
myself into Moreau and he ends up missing.
Yeah, he's okay. He's okay. A low end, like tight end 16 to 18 range if
Yeah.
Waller misses. Unplayable otherwise. Is Foreman a must add if he's on the waiver wire? I think with Chuba Hubbard banged up, still going to play. I think you must add Foreman.
Yeah, you got to add Foreman. Just like, I'm going to be honest with you. I added Foreman, or I told people to add Foreman. I told them there's no way you should play him last week. It just didn't make sense. Why would you play him against the Bucks unless you're down bad? And then, of course, we saw what happened. I mean, Tom Brady, see you later, pal. Might as well just retire now. Don't want to see that again.
Tom
Embarrassing.
Brady playing awfully, upset by the Carolina Panthers with a backup quarterback, and yet Tampa Bay still
Still in the
tied for
playoffs.
first in the division. Shellbell has Kelsey on a bye, Knox on the bench, but Higbee was dropped. So it's really down to Higbee or Knox as the last player on the bench and the starter this week. Who you got?
Yeah, I was a big Dawson Knox guy in the offseason, and then they give him the bag. They pay him the fat racks right before the season. And then where is he? Wanted poster for Dawson Knox. He had a good game against the Chiefs, but besides that, he hasn't really done much. I think Higbee's just much safer. Like, Higbee hasn't been scoring, but I mean, when you're getting 10 plus targets potentially
You
a
got to go
game,
with the volume,
you got to
right?
go with Higby. Yeah. Follow the
Absolutely.
volume.
Should I drop Daryl Henderson or Brian Robinson for Chris Olave? Yeah, you got to pick
Yeah.
up Chris Olave. Who are you
Fine.
dropping of the two? Gosh, I think it's Daryl.
Henderson.
Yep.
I think it's Henderson. I mean, Brian Robinson had another decent game. I mean, he's going to be touchdown dependent. He's going to not necessarily be someone who catches a bunch of passes. I don't even think has he gotten a target this year? I don't think so.
Not off the top of my head, I don't know, but that doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not
don't
something
think so.
he's excelling at right now.
Yeah, so he's definitely touchdown dependent. But hey, I mean, he looks really good when he's out there. Gibson had a good game as well, but I think Robinson's still the guy. And look, Darrell Henderson, this Rams team's a disaster too, so I'd probably just get rid of him. Olave is a guy you want on your team and in your lineup most weeks. Like the odds you play Darrell Henderson any week, unless your running backs absolutely suck, is pretty low.
Yeah, I agreed there. Last person I want to mention at the tight end position if you're in a super deep league and you need somebody just a dart throw, yeah, it looks like PJ Walker, who Steve Wilkes said it's going to be tough to bench him right now, even when Baker Mayfield is healthy. He does seem to like Tommy Tremble. Not the worst ever tight end pick I've ever heard of. Gosh, of course, Tommy Tremble is fantasy relevant. Now, there is one position we didn't really mention that most of you need for week 8 here. That is some sort of defense special teams that most of you need for every single week. Nick, I think you may have an idea of where the people can get some help.
Yeah, so if you need help with your defenses this week, make sure you head on over to Notorious Fantasy by Stochastic. I'm going to just link the video in the chat. I
I
talk
got you ready
about
right
my.
here. Look at this. I'm a good,
You
I'm a
already
good
got it.
host.
Wow, look at that. I also had it pulled up. I just had to click the copy
Look at
button. But yeah,
us.
so
Professionalism at
smart.
its finest.
But yeah, my top 5 defenses to stream this week. Whoever is playing the Colts, I don't remember off the top of my head. They were not included in today's video because I assumed it was Matt Ryan. I think they become somewhat interesting. Just to give a bit of a spoiler, they're not in there. Who plays the Colts this week? Do you know?
Just heading over to the schedule now. Washington, also with a
Yes.
backup quarterback.
So the Commanders could be somewhat interesting as well, but
I
they're not
agree
included in the
there.
video.
And one last thing before we head out on this fine Monday, we will be back tomorrow morning. Our quarterback and tight end rankings revealed, and we begin the week 8 journey. We're going to make it through, guys, even with the injuries to all these top players. We're going to get there. It's going to be just fine. And one last thing, I do want to say we have a really cool sponsorship and a changing offer that expires tomorrow. So this has a little bit of urgency, so I want to mention it right at the end here. You see the banner at the top of the screen. If you haven't started over at BetMGM, click the link in the video description below because this is free money over here. At the moment, I think this is one of the best offers we've had come across from our friends and our sponsors. This is really cool. $10 pregame moneyline bet. Could be football, could be college football, basketball, hockey. $10 pregame moneyline bet if anyone in the NHL scores a goal. So essentially a 100% chance you get $200 free in free bets. It's really just awesome, and we're really happy to have them a part of the process here. Click the link in the video description below, and if you want any help making those bets, at Draftaholic, that's where you can find me, or at Notorious FNTSY, that's where you can find Nick Lepri. What else you got going on? Absolutely tell the people what you're doing the next few days at Notorious in here.
Yeah, so on Notorious Fantasy, to end the day, we're going to have a waiver wire video that I'm going to work on right when we get out of here. And then Tuesday, basically the schedule is the same every week. So Tuesday, we got running back start sit, wide receiver start sit. Those are my 2 biggest videos, not biggest videos that I have every single week. So make sure you guys do watch those. A lot of information about the running back and wide receiver position that everyone seems to have questions on. And then one last thing, someone mentioned in the chat earlier, why is Nick Foles not starting over Sam Ellinger? I have no idea. I like Nick Foles. I wish he was starting, to be honest with you.
It's crazy times. It's weird. We're still going to stay in the pocket, as one of my favorite comedians says, and we're going to get through getting towards our fantasy championships. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. He's Nick Lepri. I'm at Draftaholic. My name is Matt Savoca. We'll be right back here at 10 a.m., but make sure to check out that Notorious Fantasy by Stochastic video linked in the chat below. For Nick, I'm Matt. We will see you guys tomorrow.